fill the app on 3 sheets, by the way, not 2. And I would sign it when there's a new sheet, but it should be very clear. Especially if you watched last round. Anyone not ready? The resolution is that the United States federal government should ban the sale and production of meat in the United States. The plan is the resolution. Any questions? The advantage is factory farming. The ace of point is unique. The one argument is that factory farming is a process in which massive corporations run farms for the sole purpose of profitability, uniquely exploits animals. The ace of point is that there's a massive scale, which means that you can't give individual attention to any man or animal. The ace of point is that corporations have a higher profit motive. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your definition of meat?
Of meat?
Yes.
I don't.
Flesh that comes from an animal. Flesh that comes from an animal.
Sure, flesh that comes from an animal. But like, if you want us to say something, I don't want to have a tea debate, so we'll meet your inter, whatever it is, as long as it's reasonable. The second argument is that 99% of meat produced in the United States comes from factory farms, according to the American Society for the Prevention of Animal Cruelty. The third argument is that Trump specifically is increasing the strength of factory farms in the status quo because his USDA agricultural appointee said that the label organic does not require that it does not come from a factory farm, which is in contradiction to previous administration's policy. The links. The one argument is that the plan bans the production of meat including factory farms. The second argument is that causes the international modeling. The ace of points is that the U.S. is an economic leader, which means companies have incentive to standardize their production lines, and multinational food conglomerates divest from meat in order to be able to have more standardized operations, be better able to transfer people between different countries. The piece of point is that the U.S. also eats like the most meat ever in the world, because if the U.S. bans meat, it probably sets a signal that meat's pretty fucking bad. The third argument is that there's no black market film. The ace of points is that the app creates a stigma against the ace of points is that the app creates a stigma against the black against eating meat, which means people will go against the black market in the first place. And the piece of point is that the black market is inherently more expensive because there's less regulation and less supply and more uncertainty for suppliers, which means that there will be less people buying meat from the black market in the first place. The fourth argument is that we get to be out through any circumvention arguments, i.e. you don't get to make arguments about why the USDA doesn't implement the plan. They're able to search farms and stop them from producing meat. The internal links. The one argument is that factory farms are extremely cruel to animals. The Guardian says the animals are literally trapped in cages in which they cannot physically turn around, which means they have no agency, and independently also puts them in slaughterhouses. The second argument is that it's also bad for humans. The ace of point is that the Guardian says that there were 911 deaths on factory farms because of poor working conditions from 1990 to 2011. The piece of point is zoological diseases. Johns Hopkins University says that because there's a very low amount of antibiotics given to animals on factory farms, it creates a very high risk to develop that there will be whatever it's called, like ABR, whatever it's called, like resistant bacteria. That there will be superbugs that are developed because there's not enough for them to be able to kill the disease, but there is enough for it to be able to mutate and survive. The CISA point is that it also causes toxic waste because there's a lot of waste that's produced on those farms, far more than there is fertilizer, which poisons the ground. The third argument is that banning meat consumption is independently key to solve warming, because the UN says that 19% of global emissions are because of cows, like farting methane and stuff like that. The impact. One argument is that anthropocentrism is bad, i.e. you should evaluate animal suffering equally to human ones. The ace of point is that the root cause of human suffering empirically proven because of the way that people, by the label dehumanization, as well as by the fact that people, to justify other oppression based on animalization of people. The piece of point is that it's ignored in academic areas uniquely. We talk about every other kind of oppression, but people laugh at anthro arguments in debate, whereas people would never laugh at something like anti-blackness proves that we have an ethical obligation to center this kind of violence. And the CISA point is that the third argument is that it also creates a logic of disposability for humans because of all the arguments I did above about why it's uniquely bad for humans, which also has any impact against them. The fourth argument is that zoological diseases, or ABR diseases, escalate because there's no antibiotics that can solve them, and there's increased geographical connectivity, which means it can spread. Contention 2 is framing. Structural violence comes first in one argument, securitization, the state, and inevitably construction of other crises in order to justify preventing violence against people and animals. The ace of point is empirically proven by NSA surveillance, which constructed Muslims suspect after 9/11. The piece of point is specifically true in the context of this resolution, where we focus on food security in order to justify factory farming and the destruction of the lives of literally trillions of animals. The second argument is invisibility. Structural violence is invisible in the context of academic spaces, which has a especially true in debate where we have a lot of extinction level impacts and very few structural violence level impacts. 2 implications. The ace of point is bias. You're subconsciously biased to prioritize extinction impacts, which means that you have to counteract this bias by centering structural violence. And the visa point is subject formation. The plan never passes, sure, but it can't implicate the formation of our subjectivities, which means that but it can't implicate the formation of our subjectivities means descending structural violence because we can't solve whatever the dissent is, but we can solve our subjectivities. The third argument is spillover. Structural violence leads to the conditions which justify flashpoint impacts, empirically proven. World War I didn't start because the Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated. Rather, it started because of a generation of genocide against these Serbs, which created the historical tensions which led to that assassination. The underview. One argument is fairness comes first. The disappointments that meta constrain on any critique feature no ability to evaluate the caption and procedural correctness. The disappointments that was structural fairness and anything else justifies turning anything else justifies turning debate into a referendum on people's identities, which encourages forced outing and bad faith. Narrative. Second argument, interpretation. The role of the ballot is to vote for the better debater. The role of the ballot is to vote for the better debater. Anything else arbitrary and self-serving. I'll give you a text in 1 second. There's 2 interps that I'm about to read right after each other. Yeah, what's up?
What is a better debater? Like,
yeah, I'm about to say.
What is the bright line?
That implies that we get away the app because anything else means that we're skewed out of 7 minutes of fairness, which means you can't evaluate the better debater in a world in which we're skewed. Third argument is interpretation. The negative must not contest the role of the ballot or any non-meta-ethical framework in the 1AC. The negative must not contest the role of the ballot or any meta-ethical framework in the 1AC. Prefer it. A sub-point is muting the 1AC. You can change your strategy to adopt to our 1AC strategy. We can't change the 1AC strategy to adopt to the 1NC strategy. B sub-point is contention level clash framework debate incentivizes ignoring the thesis of contention arguments and instead focusing on just the framing debate, which dodges the vast majority of the 1AC's offense. Well, not this 1AC, but most 1AC's. The third argument is that we don't endorse the thing. We just use it as a heuristic for education. The fourth argument is that inaction is ethically equivalent to action. You have to win a distinction between those things, or you're fundamentally justifying the 1AC's uniqueness as being a good thing. The fifth argument is that politics is good. The eighth point is you have to know your enemy. You have to analyze the state before you can destroy it, so you know where its weaknesses are. The eighth point is pragmatism, policymaking, grassroots movements inevitably collapse the policymaking as they grow, which means we should design them strategically with specific policy change in mind. The points ivory tower debate is inherently privileged space, but we have to prioritize, which means that your survival strategy is inaccessible unless it has practice outside of debate. And the deep sub point is it seeds politics by ignoring concrete political deliberation. You allow Trumpism and Brexit to take over, which turns every impact of every critique. It's Trump. What's the word?
Yeah, let me just go.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, I can't really read this.
The
second one?
Yeah, I can read it. Its interpretation, the negative must not contest the role of the ballot or any meta-ethical framework in the 1AC.
Okay, and the first one is the role of the ballot is to vote for the better. Okay, yeah. Thanks.
Very important.
Okay, the order is going to be 3 off, and then case number.
Are any of them long?
I don't really know what that means.
Are any of them keys?
No.
Okay. That's our key.
A's interpretation: the affirmation must also defend the ban of sale and production of synthetic meat. The affirmation must also defend the ban of sale and production of synthetic meat. Shannon, right? The violation that you specifically define meat as must come to an animal standards. First, going to that of remote education. Little a is meat is all inclusive of all types according to Merriam-Webster, including synthetic muscle tissue. The argument is that current bans in states like Missouri that specifically ban quote meat from the vocabulary but included synthetic meat. The C arguments that meat lobbyists argue over definitions, which means that you are the ones that should be defining because you're the ones passing the plan. But the second argument is that you deconstruct because we don't have access to ground and turns without synthetic meat, which means we specifically lose access to key turns and links to the disadvantage. The third argument is that this allows the empty pivot because you can always change. Oh, wait. On the interpretation, add in the PMC. On the third stand about empty pivot, you're able to change the way you defend the meat within your context by basically like sidestepping between the issue between synthetic meat and actual meat, which indicates that we are never able to predict it. And the time the LSC is moot on the voters, first going to be fairness about fairness, debate with class. The second is going to be education without clash. We don't have education with debate gets funding. Third is all you have to look towards the game, the rules of the game before you play the game. The fourth thing is no arguments because I'll take it at the end of this shell. No arguments because they justify this generous teams running theory against the piece of 5. Argument is competing interpretation over reasonability because reasonability arbitrarily suggestion that the fifth. 6 is going to be dropped later because it says community norms. Yeah.
When we explicitly say in the 1AC that we'll defend any interp you want us to of meat, right after you ask the POI, why does this not solve 100% of the abuse?
This doesn't, because it specifically reifies our energy pivot standard, because you're specifically changing it to meet our interest after we specifically demand you to say to have the sale and production of synthetic meat, whereas in the entire of the one you see, it's all about flesh that comes from the animal. That means that any truth I'm reading the LC about flesh that comes from an animal it's like literally not relevant. Okay, on the disadvantage about the economy. The uniqueness. The first argument is that U.S. businesses in meat production and livestock is doing a little A, is that farmers optimism sentiment is actually mostly confident. Agricultural economic barometer shows an increase of 12 points at an all-time high of 129 degrees. The point is that livestock investment has increased. The percentage of firms who felt that it is a good time to make investments went up by 6%. The C arguments the rate of employment opportunities in this industry grew by 2 times faster than it did in the last couple of months. The D argument is the conference board actually found that the livestock sector is pushing growth despite slow wage increases. The second argument is that the livestock industry now is kind of fragile. The subpoint under this is that farming and agriculture is actually the locust point for economic insecurity because it's tied to the entirety of the food industry. On the link level, the first argument is that the plan passes super unexpected little A, and that Trump's base are entirely made up of blue collar workers. A lot of them work in agriculture, meaning that they're the ones who are going to be the first ones affected and the ones turning against the policy. But the argument is that Trump actually withdrew regulation for organic livestock farms. Like they read this in their own uniqueness, indicate this plan is super unexpected by businesses. The C argument is that businesses and farms are going to react to unexpected political activity by freezing their expenses. The warrant for this U.S. passed a farm bill in the 1980s, which caused a lot of collapse due to overregulation. They were part of a separate bill in 1985 to actually restore the industry. The second argument is that regulations cause monetary loss. Little A is that there's a hiring freeze because it costs more money to hire new people than to keep the old individuals in their old jobs, such an indication that they're never able to have more expanded workforce. But the argument is that you put investment there's an intersection between the livestock industry and the overall agricultural industry. The biggest 6 companies in meat are also included in sustainable farming measures and are also invested in, meaning we're not going to be able to have these procedures. The third link to the plan passage, which caused the investment subpoint is that the U.S. received $38.18 billion in agriculture and livestock investment in the past 5 years, which was later distributed to the entire sector, not just in meat. But the argument that this is controlling to business clubs because smaller farms, the ones that are actually dependent on the capital to start off in the first place. You can look towards the fact that these are key to 3 million jobs a year, which is probably key to lots of people's lives. On the impact, the first impact is going to be that economic collapse. Important for a couple reasons. Subpoint A is that this spills over to U.S. economy because the livestock industry is $346 billion in total economic output. The argument is that this spills over to the world economy because 65% of the world's liquidity is in the U.S. dollars. The argument is that food prices just skyrocket because people literally don't have meat anymore, which leads to mass starvation. The argument is poverty. Look towards the fact that 1.8 million people's jobs depend on the livestock industry directly, which and the spillover macro prices impact 1 year property takes 7% life, which probably really big structural impact. The E argument is that when the economy collapses, it causes environmental degradation. When you can look towards Brazil and the economy went back, started cutting down more trees and rainforests. The F point is that economic collapse leads to war. You can look towards Germany, World War I. The reason why they went to war in the first place was because they were starving, which indicates that our impact of economic collapse leads to structural, which means their internal interstructural impacts. It probably preempts a lot of the framing stuff anyway. But the second disadvantage is going to be illicit markets. On the uniqueness argument, the first argument is that meat regulation suspicion and status quo. Little A is the EP is able to limit the output and exploitation of farms. And right now, the B argument is Obama-era fertilizer regulation to prevent eutrophication of nearby rivers. The second argument is that farmers are currently compliant. Little A is that they created a new program to redistribute antibiotics and other such medication. The B argument is that California farmers are overhauling their water quality system due to new regulation. But the third argument that scrutiny is good. Little A noted this that in April and June of 2018, there were new lawsuits over animal welfare and health standards indicating that progress means status quo. The next argument, the first argument is that plant mass which pushes the production underground and leads to criminal activity. More for this is that in San Francisco, there are actually been street sellers that have been caught on camera selling unknown red meat to restaurants because after companies like WeWork banned meat at company events and restaurants. But the second argument is that this harms health. The unregulated meat doesn't abide by standards, which means that especially the more for this in developing nations without high food standards, it leads to parasites within, for example, children that eat this food. But the third argument is that this increases corruption. There's no incentive to be transparent anymore, which means there's no overall structural government and reforms which informs overall decision making on these little investments. We have a high magnitude internal impact. But the impact here is first, the impact is going to be how this implicates specifically individuals who can't pay the pricey amounts of money to fly to Paris and eat the meat. They're indicating that it's people within the United States who are having their quality of life indicated. Okay, let's move on to the app case. Okay. On the first advantage about factory farms, on the uniqueness level, the first argument here is that new methods are able to solve. First, the subpoint A of this is that you can cross-apply the corruption, the uniqueness of corruption, which is probably an indication for the status quo. Some of the arguments that activism is able to solve. We have a lot of grassroots movements that are advocating against putting money against these factory farms. The C arguments that the Democrats now have the House, and Democrats are more likely to push for bills that are able to decrease factory farms. The D arguments that incrementalism is probably better, having these slower policies better because an absolute ban is going to cause a lot of political backlash, and having which indicates that the Dems are only going to lose political capital. They only control one part of the House, which indicates they're not able to pass. Okay, on the link level. They talk about international modeling. The first response here is that we have low legitimacy in the status quo, which indicates low legitimacy because of Trump. That they specifically articulate this themselves, which means there's no international modeling. But the second response is that developing nations literally don't have the privilege to ban meat because a lot of these individuals depend on farming and livestock for their livelihood. But the third response, that assuming that international modeling is a good thing, is including a lot of cultural connections to meet that a lot of different nations have, which is probably going to be a unique term because your representations are the ones that are separating these individuals from your calculus. But the third thing you make about is no black market. The first argument is that there's not going to be stigma. Individuals don't care about stigma. The San Francisco War probably is a thumper to that. But the second argument is that it's actually cheaper because they lack regulation in the first place. A lot of reasons why meat is so expensive is because they have to abide by regulations right now. The fourth argument they make is that they can fiat lack of circumvention. The first argument is that even if you can fiat that like the plan comes, you don't fiat the way consumers respond, which means that some consumers will inevitably still try to buy like really bad meat, right? On the internal level, the first argument you make is that animal cruelty. The first argument we're going to make here is turn that any illicit market for meat is probably going to be worse because they don't abide by regulation. But the second argument you're going to be making here, the second argument we're going to be making here is that the takes probably also turn this because you make things structurally worse. And they argue that governmental policies come before. The second argument they make about humans and poor working conditions. The first argument is necessarily turn because you necessarily push all the meat production into other countries that don't have these working regulations. Means you're only shifting the burden of these regulations onto other nations. It's probably going to be worse because they don't even have labor regulations. The second response to that reforms are able to solve. The third argument to make is about superbugs. Our argument is that we're able to solve for superbugs. The first argument is that there's a new method of reprogramming bacteria instead of killing them, which means we have non-persistent bacteria. The second response is that this new method has already saved 700,000 people worldwide in a study done by an American scientist indicating that antibiotics are not an issue to status quo for. The fourth argument they make is about toxic waste. Our indication that toxic waste is not happening at the point where we're already indicating that eutrophication is decreasing status quo. Finally, on their argument about slowing warming, they have no impact to warming specifically because they already talk about why high magnitude impacts are probably going to be bad. On their anthro stuff, the first argument is that root cause claims are bad because they preclude intersectionality because you see there's only one cause of everything. The second argument that anthroperception is not verifiable because we kill bacteria every time we swallow, which means there's no rather. The third argument is that it's inherent within human biology to survive, meaning we're always necessarily going to be putting out animals. But the fourth argument is biocentrism. Battle or aim is that only with technology we're actually able to solve global warming. You can see this in status quo we're able to invest in like solar and wind. But the B argument is that domesticated animals depend on humans to solve. So if you take away anthropocentrism, these animals will necessarily die. The C argument is going to be colonialism because you're effectively forcing this ethic on developing nations on their subjugations. Shannon, did you pass the prize? Yes.
Order is going to be one new sheet. The theory, case in order.
Wait, sorry. Theory, case in order. Like your case?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the decides in order.
Can I get that one more time, please?
Yeah. One new sheet. The theory sheet. Then case in order, decides in order. Okay. Okay. Is everyone good?
A's interpretation. So if the 1AC says they will debate any reasonable interpretation of the resolution, the 1AC must not reach topicality. If the 1AC says that they will defend any reasonable interpretation of the resolution, the 1AC must not reach topicality violation. We literally say that we will defend any interpretation that they agree as long as it's reasonable. And they like they also they don't respond to that. That probably means that and they also reach topicality, which is probably bad. The first argument to this is frivolous theory. We said that this is uniquely bad because it causes more. This caused more frivolous theory, which is uniquely bad because it literally allows them to read frivolity. We say that this is uniquely bad because it prevents it from engaging in the substance of the debate. They also agree that substance is important, which is probably a reason why I should write them down. Any other standards I need to read?
No.
Okay. Extend fairness and education. Also extend that this is we said that this is an offer. Also extend competing interpretation is good. Extend, but also we tell you that this theory is inferior to theirs because it is an examination of how they read theory, which probably comes first. Yeah.
Go on to the theory sheet.
Counterinterpretation asks me to defend. Counterinterpretation asks me to defend a ban of only animal meat. Asks me to defend a ban of only animal meat. Here's the text. We obviously need this counterinterpretation because that's what we see. The counter standard is contextual definition. That's probably the most predictable. Definition on this topic. Who thought they were going to round about the production of synthetic meat? Probably not any of you, which is probably a reason why we should prefer this definition. Yeah. Also, anthropocentrism is a counterstandard.
Because like they're equating synthetic meat and animal meat.
Because they're equating synthetic meat and animal meat, which is probably really bad. Anthropocentrism. Yeah. The third argument is our flexibility. We say that the affirmative is bound to the resolution, whereas the negative, it literally is allowed to read any argument that they want. We say that this is unique. When we say that this is uniquely key to afflexible, otherwise we're always tied down in one position, which means that the negative can infinitely predict our position, whereas we never know exactly what they read on their interpretation. First of all, plan flaw. They don't have that. They don't have period. They don't have a period at the end of the interpretation, which means that it's not a completed statement. That's probably the reason why you can't evaluate it. Also, we say that the plan means the interpretation. We will we literally say we defend any interpretation as long as it's reasonable. In the one I see, we don't say that we shift out of our advocacy to defend something. We just say like whatever you want to define this as. Like out of the two AC, like we'll go with it as long as it's reasonable. Any offense I need to put on standards? Yeah. Please don't buy this. Okay. Yeah. Oh, also extend no RBIs onto meta theory. Yeah. On to the case debate. First of all, extend the explicit analysis where we tell you the factual empowerment is probably really big right now. They tell you that they tell the grassroots movements are obviously being able to solve. But we see that these grassroots movements are never going to be taken seriously because anthropocentrism literally looks to white literally looks to white people white people eating meat eating meat and hamburgers just to piss off vegans is probably the reason why the grassroots movements are not able to solve. We say that the state is key to solvency because it means that it legitimizes the movement. Also,
Injecting the political capital stuff.
Also, they tell you that we destroy democratic political capital, but they don't reach your reason for why Democrats are good. We say the Democrats are bad because Republicans are able to establish more. Republicans are better able to establish U.S. hegemony abroad because they take a more hardline stance in other areas. We say that this is probably better for preventing war, and also use Hedge is able to solve for better human rights impact because we're able to counterbalance Russia and China. Even if you don't like the U.S., we're probably better than Russia and China because Russia literally says that the gays are evil, and so does China. They also say that incrementalism is good. We say that's probably not true because incrementalism means that it means that it sucks capital out of a more revolution, like a larger movement. Anything else?
Modeling.
Okay, yeah. On the link debate. Wait, can
You can see the economic standardization argument on modeling.
Except
companies want to be economically standardized, which means even if other countries don't implement regulations, the multinational corporations will stop factory farming in other countries.
Yeah. Extend the economic argument on modeling. We say that having more uniformity and regulations means that companies overseas will stop factory farming. That this doesn't the analysis on the modeling argument isn't essentially saying that other countries will ban meat. It's like the modeling argument is preventing factory farming in other countries, which means that there's no link to their cultural connection argument. Also, there's also probably no link to their argument about people starving in other countries because we just eliminate a very unfair practice on meat production. Also go on to the black market arguments. They tell you that people don't necessarily care about stigma. We say that having this such a radical policy means that people will, because if you ban all production of meat in the United States, that probably means meat eating significantly more taboo because the United States fucking government literally banned this. That probably says a pretty big statement. Also, they tell you that regulations are the only thing that make meat expensive in this aspect. But we tell you that having the black market and having no regulations probably makes it significantly more expensive because they have to find a way to evade the regulations to say that there shouldn't be meat sold in the U.S. It's probably a harder regulation to evade. Go on to extend the internal link debate. Go on to the impact level.
No, on the internal link, they can see that animals literally do not have agency living in factory farms.
Extend the argument when we tell you that animals literally don't have agency, living in factory farming. That's a prerequisite to everything else. They tell you that zoological diseases are probably evaded by are probably worsened by no regulations. But we tell you that the USDA being able to check back for factory farming probably is able to solve for all of this. Also, like cultural stigma and the lack of a demand for meat probably means that this at least significantly mitigates the impact. Also, going to the is there any other argument on here that I need?
It's fine.
Okay, going to the anthropocentrism. Do I need the answer?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I want you to extend the C argument under extend the C argument under anthropocentrism. This establishes a logical logic of disposability, even if you don't care about animals. This is uniquely because it also implicates other forms of oppression, i.e., why it's literally called dehumanization. Like what? Oh, actually, that's. Okay, yeah. Why dehumanization is called dehumanization? Why women are all women in feminine bodies are typically compared to animals? Why black bodies are compared to animals? This is we have to examine how we talk about animals first. Yeah.
They say root cause claims fail, but they conceded the pieces of the reason that the root cause, which means it solves the external impact.
Yeah. Also, they say that root cause claims fail, but they concede the thesis of why it's root cause claim impact, which probably means that it solves. Yeah. It solves and then
which means it solves the external impact.
It solves the external impact to intersectionality. Also, we tell you that at least thinking about the way we orient ourselves toward animals is probably good. Even if you think anthropocentrism is inevitable, at least is a better way of thinking about it, because we literally laugh these arguments off otherwise.
Who needs to set coverage?
I feel really attacked. Wait, I just left my shoes up there. Hi, internet, seeing me be disorganized again. Listen to me.
Who wants to guess the one they are? Or is this all a mind game to get them to overcover theory?
Sorry, I can really think about it.
What's the word?
Oh, it's going to be the theory shell, or your theory shell.
Yeah.
Does that have one? Then case.
Step one.
Does that have one? Economy.
In regards to the theory shell, do you mean the one that's brought up in the PMC or in the MG?
MG. Are you not putting two anywhere? I put it on top. Oh, sorry, you mean this? Yeah. Nah.
Could you repeat the order one more time?
Yeah, sure. It's going to be their theory shell on the MG, disadvantage 1, in that case. Okay, is everyone ready? Counter-interpretation. Oh, shit. Sorry. My camera's literally. So sorry. Okay.
We haven't texted the camera, right?
I'll pass my.
Sharon
will write it. Okay.
You can pass the sheet after you're finished.
Yeah.
Okay. Counter-interpretation. If the 1AC is able to defend any reasonable interpretation of the resolution, the 1AC can read what? The 1NC.
1NC can read H.
The 1NC can read a topicality. First of all, reasons to prefer. First of all, there's no verifiability of whether or not you will be reasonable, which probably means that there's not reason to be buying their standard over here. But second of all, there's trackback for MG because now you can defend the synthetic meat too, which means that you are able to explode your ground, which probably means that they're biting harder. This is specifically bad for debate because they're now pivoting to whatever definition we brought up in the LOC, which probably means that this is worse for debate. But third of all, there's no bright light for what is reasonable. They don't provide a bright light for what is reasonable in the PMC, which is another reason for why we probably have to defend it more in the LOC. We can't just ask infinite questions in the PMC, which probably is worse normative debate because that literally leads to no case education. But the fourth risk area is this case of checking back to the applicants who are able to parametricize both in the 1NC and in the MG, which probably means that being reasonable is actually a really bad norm for debate. Also we need this. We literally say that we're going to be meeting whatever counter theory shell they do, but they don't specify hard enough, which probably is a reason for why we have to run theory shell in the first place. But the standards, first of all, you say this is more fair for theory, more substantive. The impacts is probably more substantive to actually debate, define what the plan text is in the first place and what definitions are, which probably means there's always a sequencing question in terms of why why our theory was able to come out in the first place. But even if you don't buy that, substantive impacts are probably less quantifiable in terms of theory debate, because you're always going to be looking toward, because proven abuse is literally not verifiable within the debate space, because it increases the amount of judge intervention that has to happen. Who was more unfair than the other person, which means that their counter-interpretation about like meta level debate, this probably doesn't matter because we're not going to be going for the theory show. But also no golden terms of the PMR first. What?
More, it's just, that's better. When they drop the diss has to spend more time on theory means they don't care about substance.
Oh yeah, they literally dropped their disadvantages and they didn't talk about which means they don't care about the substance of the actual case debate, which probably means that we're solving more for education. Yeah.
Also, no Brylan for what T is.
Oh, also there's what for what?
There's no Brylan for what frivolous T.
Oh yeah, there's no Brylan for what frivolous tyranny is, which probably means that there's no which probably means that there's no reason to be voting for their reasonability arguments anyways, because they don't provide a bright light on the bottom. You can see there's no golden terms. First of all, because you literally know the strategy of the MO of before when I said when I said my order, when you don't know it until the PMR, which probably means the negation is always at a unique disadvantage. But second of all, you can see that they have more time. That there's like an subconscious bias, but always for the affirmative. They are starting and ending the speech, which probably means that there's no golden terms. The PMR is key to check back for for the article switch doesn't check back in this specific route, because we literally can't just change to be the affirmative at the very end of the debate, which probably means that you're always going to be looking towards don't allow to golden terms of the PMR. Yeah, question.
Can you explain this meat argument? Like, I literally just don't understand it.
Sure. Oh, that doesn't matter.
Okay, it doesn't really matter. Just go on for computer interpretations is better.
Yeah.
On the
Why their theory shells are prior to ours.
Oh yeah, they say that that you always look towards I priori over theirs.
Say that definitions are always going to come first.
Definitions are always going to come first because we cannot understand what your plain text is, and we can't have fair access to arguments first in order. So that's a necessary reason for why our theory shell is always going to come. Is always reason to
their theory shell isn't first.
Also, their theory shell isn't first. Yeah.
And then their theory shell decreases substance in the debate, which is the reason for why it's
their
not
theory,
a priority.
Okay, their theory shell literally decreases substance in this debate, which is the reason for why it's not a priority. Anything else? Okay, on the disadvantage. They completely concede the disadvantage. Well, first, on the status quo arguments, it literally means that what?
Go back to theory.
What?
There's no drop the debater argument.
Oh, there's no drop the debater argument, which probably, which means
which means you drop the argument.
Which means you drop the argument, and then the T-shell doesn't implicate us in the round. Don't allow them to make new arguments in the PMR about this. The disadvantage, they completely concede the uniqueness around about. Right now, there's a really fragile status quo argument about the agriculture, how agriculture is literally growing at 2 times faster, and firms are actually creating a lot of boards and a lot of commissions to actually check back against the animal abuse that's happening in the status quo, which is the reason for why the status quo is independently able to solve in turn when 100% of what the affirmative is trying to say, this is access to no solve, this access terminal defense against the affirmative on the link level. You can basically extend how this is really bad for blue collar jobs because it's literally seen as extremely unexpected. They can see the warrant about how they freezed assets in 1985, which probably is a high probability impact for why you're going to be probably for why the plan is also going to trigger this type of collapse scenario, but also that this is really key to hiring business. The 6 companies that are in the agriculture sector are literally key to sustainable farming, which means you move the entirety of renewable energy or clean agricultural technologies in the future, which probably means that this is able to turn 100% of your arguments about when there's going to be worse extraction methods and worse ways of farming. That means we're never able to be solving for anthropocentrism. We're always going to be prioritizing some other animal other than meat, which probably means that they're not able to solve for time frame, which means that we control the internal link to their argument. On the impact level, you're going to be extending the fact the spillover to the economy is going to be the internal link to making sure that there are structural impacts in the first place. Environmental degradation is literally key to things like environmental racism, where we prioritize certain areas over another, exclude certain marginalized populations, which means that always solving for environmental degradation first is the key thing to making sure that we turn that you vote for us on the app case. On the case. There's absolutely, overview on the case, there's absolutely no solvency because they do not change the behavior of humans. You cannot fiat the fact that all of a sudden we're going to be acting anthropocentrism, but they don't fiat the anthropocentrism impact. They also concede the fact that the status quo is solving for animal testing. Let's go specifically on the line by line. First of all, they try to say that grassroots movements are not going to be key because white people literally eat meat. But first of all, your plan doesn't fiat the actual lifestyle changes of these people, anyways, which probably means that your plan is literally just like this mode of implementation. But what?
People are willing to eat meat in front of vegans despite them.
If people are literally going to be eating meat in front of vegans just despite them, that probably means that you exacerbate and embolden them to do this once the plan passes. But second of all, you see that incrementalism is better. They concede the fact that if you are going to be passing a plan, you also need it to be comprehensive to the plan, which probably means that Democrats having the House is actually really good. They concede our argument about how Democratic pass is going to be passing more environmentally friendly policies towards the agricultural sector, but they also concede that the EPA is independently able to do this within the status quo and create better comprehensive reform for what is good and what is bad, antibiotics for actual animals that is the reason why the status quo is able to solve. They say this prevents war with Russia and China. That literally thumps the entirety of their spillover arguments, because if Russia and China are not going to be listening to the United States anyways, that probably means you don't have any spillover arguments into developing countries, because they also concede the fact that when they say that there's economic standards, first of all, there's no warrants for why economic standards is going to solve back. Here's a couple warrants right now. For example, countries like India, when the FDA literally banned 118 types of animal testing products testing products, they literally still do 53 of them in their factory farming workhouse, which probably means that your spillover arguments are thumped by this advantage. But also, they can see the fact that stigma is literally not going to happen. They don't review warrants for why stigma will decrease. This is not a radical policy, right? The states have already proposed this type of policy, which means that you have low mitigation. There's mitigation on your impacts, but also the ban literally is when we ban alcohol, this didn't radicalize the entire movement, which probably means that you don't solve there. They say that there's going to be things about agency, that animals don't have agency. First of all, this is the idea of colonialism. We see these animals as something that we have to save, that we have to liberate, that we have to decolonialize in the first place. It's the same reason for why people are still being oppressed within the status quo, which probably means that they relink into their entire app harder. We say that relinks are worse because of man versus manslaughter, murder versus manslaughter analysis about how you know that you're doing something bad, but also relink into your criticism by saying you're going to save these animals. That's ultimately worse, because you are never going to be able to solve your implementations on the lower extent for why root cause is bad. It's not reverse causal. Just because you isolate a root cause thing doesn't mean it's the same thing, which means you don't solve for intersectionality because you don't understand. You're not indicting the system. You're literally using the system to oppress further animals.
Okay. The order is going to be overview. Just turn it off. Okay. An overview on the dissad, and then theory. Everyone ready? Don't vote for theory. The one standard doesn't even link to the voters of fairness and education. Extend all the analysis that Shannon makes. That means you're going to be voting on the dissad because it outweighs case.
I think that the argument that our standard doesn't have an internal link to fairness and education, but I'm going to be bad at it.
I think a lot of Shannon's responses talk about how you don't link to things like education because you drop the dissad, spend time on theory, etc. It's just like a summary.
Yeah, I'm not sure that links to this standard, but it's up to panel of one. Yeah.
This means you go to the dissad, and the dissad is going to be the internal link to the entirety of the case. They literally concede the entirety of the disadvantage, which means on the uniqueness level, because these businesses have all this money and all this capital to invest in better policies, that means the status quo is able to solve. And on the link level, all of this goes conceded about how the planned passage causes all these farms and all these businesses to literally collapse. It's the internal link to actually having better farming policies in the future, because like I said, these 6 biggest companies are also implicated in new investment measures to actually push forward better climate change policies, better policies to decrease factory farming, meaning they have to resolve the disadvantage first if the internal link to the affirmative on the impact level. The impact about economic collapse is going to come before anything they read on case for a couple of reasons. The first is going to be the fact that systemic poverty means that none of your impacts even matter, because you talk a lot about anthropocentrism, but at the point where I isolate the fact that when people are literally starving, they don't care if they cut down trees and kill squirrels, right? Because all they care about is getting food in their stomachs, which is an indication that you have to resolve economic collapse before you resolve anthropocentrism. But the second reason the econ collapse is going to be coming first is because it is a more structural impact, because it actually has implicates a lot of specific individuals, specific demographics that are always going to be most targeted by these individuals, by structures of power, which is an indication that we're probably better able to actually solve instances of oppression more materially than anything in the affirmative, which means the disadvantage is going to come first and massively outweighs, and there's literally no work done on this, which means all the links are true, all the impacts are true. This outweighs the case. On to theory. They're probably going to go for theory at the point where they literally drop the entirety of the case. So a couple reasons why they don't win theory. The first reason is that our counter interpretation is definitely going to be better. Shannon received 4 counter standards for why our interpretation is better, because their interpretation literally explodes the amount of ground they have access to. It's probably even more abusive than their original plan in the first place, which is an indication why you should uniquely drop them, because of the fact that it's super unverifiable and you only cause more afflex, which is probably really bad for negative teens. Specifically,
point of order. Afflex back to negative teams is definitely new.
This is just comparison between the 4 counter standard about afflex and then the argument Shannon makes on the underview for why the neg is uniquely disadvantaged.
Okay, sure.
Okay, everyone ready? So these are all reasons why you shouldn't be even buying this theory shell in the first place. But on their specific standard, they only read one standard about frivolous theory, and you can extend Shannon's response for why frivolous theory should literally not be a voting issue within today's round, though on the voter level. The only argument they make here is something about fairness education, about the point where we literally talk about how our counter-interpretation is probably better for education because it's more, because it's literally more stable, it's more verifiable, which means more quantifiable for education. It's also better for fairness because we actually allow the neg to also parametricize within the LLC, not in the MO, which is already literally way too late. It's an indication that we actually link harder to the voters of fairness and education means we are the ones that are better for fairness and education. Next, when they talk about their theory shell being all prior to ours, extend Shannon's responses for why definitions always come first, and they literally get rid of substantive debate, meaning that they're not even abiding by their own standard, which is probably going to be a unique reason not to go for the shell in the first place. Next, onto like the underview golden turn stuff. Extend Shannon's analysis about golden turns, couple implications here. The first implication, obviously, they don't give them access to golden turns because it's totally unfair to let them have new responses in the PMR. But the second implication of this is that if theory comes to watch, you have to default neg because Av already has a advantage. Extend all the arguments that Shannon makes about why you have to look towards the neg first because Av gets the first and last speech, and because switch sides is unable to check back because we literally can't switch sides right now. Which means ultimately you're unable to vote for theory. There's like no standard to go for. They don't link to fairness education, not a voting issue. Let's go to Av case real quick. Okay, if they try to go for try or die for the affirmation, there's literally no try or die because there's still a risk of a disadvantage link. There's a massive risk of a disadvantage link because they straight up concede the disadvantage, which means you can extend all of our arguments about how status quo solved. The status quo is able to solve the affirmative, then only a risk of the disadvantage means you vote neg. Additionally, on the link level, they make a lot of arguments about international modeling and black market, but these arguments only relink them back to the same anthropocentric logic that they indict in their own impact level, and they've conceded the argument that relinks are worse than links specifically, which is an indication that they're never actually able to solve for anthropocentric rhetoric or anthropocentric mindsets because they're literally implicating themselves. So on the impact level, if they try to do any sort of framing work that says that anthropocentrism comes first, they also concede the entire block of why biocentrism is bad, which means ultimately like their impact is turned, you have to go neg.
The order is, we'll do some stuff on T at the top, like theory. And
MG
then,
or topicality?
Huh?
MG topicality or 1AC theory?
2AC theory.
Cool.
And then it'll be the AF. Yeah. Oh, and I'm going to reference the 1NC cheat sheet, but never go there explicitly. Cool. Anyone not good? Cross-apply the argument from T and the 2AC that not having a period in the interpretation means it's irresolvable. Call for the text of the interpretation they pass on the counter-interpret doesn't have a period in it means that the counter-interpret makes no sense. Even if you don't want to buy into one of your arguments that say dropped in the 2AC of not having a period in the interpretation means it's impossible to evaluate. It means that the counter-interpret makes no sense. They have two outs in this debate. One is their we meet argument, but they literally said that there's no warrant for one S and PY means you shouldn't evaluate the we meet. They've considered the violation out of the 2AC, but second is their argument there's no warrant for drop the debate. Second is their argument there's no warrant for drop the debate. Or one, we cross-applied it from the 1NC sheet. Two, even if it's not true, it's probably the default of at least 4 people in this room, considering you're all or mostly all Cal debaters. And 3, there's no warrant for why I can't read new arguments now. Drop the debater because she invested time in this sheet. No golden turns. Yeah, the no golden turns argument makes it impossible to be affirmative because we literally can't make any new arguments in the one any new arguments in the 1IR and 1AR also makes it made impossible to resolve because you're just forced to intervene on 1AR arguments because we obviously have to be able to read offense in the 1AR. Anything else justifies the block reading new counter plans or something ridiculous like that. We need the access to offense and will with no golden turns. It forces intervention on these arguments. Intervention always outweighs because it's unpredictable and makes it impossible to debate, which means it outweighs all their fairness arguments. There's no war between fairness. There's no way between fairness and education. Fairness outweighs education because it's a prerequisite to verifying education plan, which means that there's golden turns. Okay, even if you don't buy that, kiss. The block reads a new argument that performative contradictions undercut solvency for anthropocentrism. They also extend the argument that biocentrism is good. It means that there's a double turn because we link to our own discourse, which undercuts our movement from solving. And also biocentrism is bad, i.e. I will concede the argument that performative contradictions are bad and turn solvency, I will also concede the articulation at the end of the one another that biocentrism is a bad idea means that the double turn means that if you vote affirmative, we link into we link into the like K, which was never K in the first place, but they articulate as a K. But they articulate as a K, and that solves biocentrism. It means that there's less biocentrism because the movement is undercut, which is the Bloch's articulation. Means it's a double turn outweighs because it's a pre-fiat implication, which is their own articulation of the perf con debate. I have some time left, so go to the hedge stuff on the app because I like debating. They kind of mishandled the hedge argument. They conceded that Republicans are better for hegemony. Their Republican poll cap is better for hegemony. Their only argument is their response to Russia and China going to war. Our argument is not about checking back Russia and China war, but rather that U.S. hegemony is able to prevent Russia and China from committing more human rights abuses, which is a dropped argument. Which is a dropped argument in the Truancy. Actually, I wasn't flying that much of the Truancy because I thought it was going for theory, but I think it was a dropped argument. You just said it's a dropped argument. Yeah, it's dropped. That outweighs all of your offense. One is on scope and impacts every person in the world rather than just people in the United States. I'll concede the no spillover argument means that you don't get offensive seconds on time frame hedge can collapse at any second, whereas the ramifications of investors take time. Here's a very simple way to see that. It's a Sunday, which means it at least takes tomorrow until tomorrow when the stock market opens for your impacts to trigger, whereas our impacts can trigger immediately because people are awake all the time in worlds. Time frame outweighs. One is intervening actors can solve back your offense in the long run. Empirically proven, for example, an alien could come tomorrow and give us more money, which would solve the economic collapse arguments. There's always a risk that that's true, because you have to prioritize solving the faster impacts. The second argument is that it's verifiability. Faster impacts are more verifiable because we don't know what will happen in the future. We don't, for example, maybe there will be a nuclear strike on the NYSE before tomorrow, which means that the economy couldn't collapse, which means that independently the intervening actors argument is more verifiable when impacts happen in the short term, which means that we can win. That this argument outweighs it, accesses all of their framing arguments. We've conceded the biocentrism argument, which means that they can't go for any argument, which means that you can't vote on any arguments that they're better for animal life. You have to just weigh who is better for human life, and there is zero impact calculus in the block between the hegemony debate and there's zero impact calculus in the block between the hegemony debate and this and any of their economy arguments. They only do impact calculus versus the structural versus the impacts out of the 1AC, and there's no impact calculus on this impact term. Do I need anything else?
Wait, point of order, stop time. The hedge argument, as it was read in the MG, was just about preventing war. There was no impact.
Nah, there was preventing war, and then there was also U.S. offsets, Russia and China, and U.S. is better. I explicitly remember saying, even if you don't like the U.S., we're better than Russia and China because Russia and China are worse for human rights. I just restated what I said verbatim. So.
Are we good?
Not cool. Yeah.
Go back to theory. I have 40 seconds left. I'm going to run my line on the theory debate anyway. On the competing interpretations, there's a question of an offense defense paradigm. There's no impact calculus in the block between these standards. They only have defense on a frivolous theory argument, which means it outweighs one is that it implicates every single future round because teams will be incentivized to read bad T arguments, which kills all substantive education and procedural fairness. Because it means that they'll just be flippy in order to win these arguments. They say no internal link, but that's doing the one and R. They have a bunch of arguments about our specific reading of the shell crowd that substantive education, but there's no more for that functions in world competing interpretations. It's not read with interpretations. It's not a meta-theoretical reason to drop us. They say it's not a priori. They say it's not a priori, but there's no more. But they said in the one and say that it's before T in theory. They have no impact calculus on the standards debate. It means that we win.
What a round, y'all.
The one AR is an amazing speech. I just want to say.
I agree with that statement.
I love giving this.